Millionaires don't think about money the way you do. They follow 15 rules that most people never discover. And the first 5 are going to change how you see wealth forever. Rule number 1 is this: they spend less than they earn. It sounds obvious, but 90% of people fail at it. Millionaires treat this like a non-negotiable law. They don't wait until the end of the month to see what's left. They decide up front how much they're going to save, then spend what remains. The math is simple. If you earn $100 and spend $110, you'll never be rich, no matter how much you earn. But if you earn $100 and spend $70, you've got $30 working for you every single time. That gap is where wealth is built. Rule number 2 is about understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. Most people buy liabilities and call them investments. A liability takes money out of your pocket. An asset puts money into it. A car that depreciates is a liability. A rental property that generates income is an asset. Millionaires obsess over this distinction. They ask themselves before every purchase, will this make me money or cost me money? That question alone will redirect thousands of dollars in your lifetime. Rule number 3 is about the power of compound interest. And this is where time becomes your greatest weapon. Albert Einstein allegedly called it the 8th wonder of the world. When you invest money early, it doesn't just grow. It grows on top of itself again and again for decades. Someone who invests $5,000 at age 25 will have far more at 65 than someone who invests $50,000 at age 45. Time multiplies your money in ways your salary never will. Millionaires start investing early and they never stop. They let decades do the heavy lifting. Rule number 4 is about tracking every dollar. You cannot manage what you don't measure. Millionaires know exactly where their money goes. Not approximately. Exactly. They track income, expenses, investments, and debt with precision. Some use spreadsheets. Some use apps. The tool doesn't matter. The discipline does. When you see in real time where your money is flowing, you spot the leaks. You see the subscriptions you forgot about. You notice the patterns in your spending that sabotage your goals. Awareness creates change. Rule number 5 is about avoiding debt, or more specifically, avoiding bad debt. Not all debt is created equal. A mortgage on a property that appreciates might be acceptable. Credit card debt at 23% interest is a wealth killer. Millionaires understand this distinction deeply. They avoid consumer debt like it's contagious. They don't finance cars they can't afford. They don't carry credit card balances. They don't borrow money for things that depreciate. They borrow strategically, if at all, for assets that generate returns. The rest they save for and pay cash. These first 5 rules are the foundation. They're not glamorous. They won't make you rich overnight. But they're the bedrock that every millionaire stands on. The remaining 10 rules build on top of these, and they get more interesting from here. Rule 6 is about leverage. And this is where millionaires start separating themselves from everyone else. They understand that your time is finite, but your money isn't. So they use capital to buy back their time and multiply their efforts. This might mean hiring a virtual assistant for $50 an hour so they can focus on work that pays $500. It might mean investing in systems or software that automate repetitive tasks. It might mean delegating entirely. The point is they refuse to trade hours for dollars indefinitely. They break that cycle early. Rule 7 sounds simple, but it's surprisingly rare. Millionaires track their net worth obsessively. Not their income, not their spending, their net worth. Assets minus liabilities. They know this number monthly, sometimes weekly. They watch it grow. And because they're watching it, they make decisions that move it in the right direction. Most people have no idea what their net worth actually is. They know their salary, they know their mortgage, but they've never sat down and calculated whether they're actually getting richer or just earning more. Millionaires do this constantly. Rule 8 is about relationships with money itself. Millionaires negotiate everything. They negotiate salaries. They negotiate bills. They negotiate contracts. They negotiate the price on cars and houses. They understand that most prices in life are suggestions, not absolutes. And they're willing to have the conversation. This isn't about being cheap. It's about respecting your own money enough to fight for it. The average person accepts the first number they hear. Millionaires see that as leaving money on the table. Rule 9 is about diversification, but not in the way you might think. Yes, they diversify their investments, but they also diversify their income. They don't rely on a single paycheck. They build side income streams. They invest in businesses. They create products. They understand that one income source is fragile. If that job disappears, everything collapses. Multiple income streams mean security and acceleration. One stream might grow into something massive, while the others keep the lights on. Rule 10 is about patience with compounding, but impatience with mediocrity. Millionaires are willing to wait 20 or 30 years for their investments to multiply. They understand that time is their greatest asset in wealth building, but they're impatient about their own growth. They read constantly. They take courses. They seek mentors. They upgrade their skills. They fire themselves from jobs that aren't teaching them anything. They know that their earning power is the engine that funds everything else, so they invest in it relentlessly. They're patient with money, but aggressive with self-improvement. These 5 rules shift the conversation from defense to offense. You're no longer just protecting what you have. You're actively building systems that make money work for you, instead of the other way around. You're multiplying your impact. You're creating redundancy. You're upgrading yourself. And you're doing it all while staying disciplined with the foundation you built in the first 5 rules. The next 5 rules are where it gets really interesting, because they're about psychology and decision-making. Because here's what separates people who make money from people who keep it. Most folks think wealth is about earning more. It's not. It's about thinking differently about what you already have. Rule 6 is this: millionaires treat money like a tool, not a trophy. They don't spend to impress. They spend to invest. There's a psychological shift that happens when you stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "Does this move me closer to my goals?" A millionaire will drive a reliable car that costs $30,000 while their neighbor buys a luxury car they can't really afford. Both can afford the payment. One person is building. One person is performing. Rule 7 follows directly from that. Millionaires say no to 99% of opportunities, and they're ruthless about it. Not because they're pessimistic, because they understand scarcity. Your time, your attention, your capital, these aren't infinite. So every yes to something mediocre is a no to something exceptional. You'll watch a millionaire turn down a business deal that would make a normal person excited. Why? Because it doesn't fit the system they've already built. It doesn't compound with their existing assets. It's a distraction. Rule 8 is about this exact principle. Millionaires make decisions based on their values, not their emotions. Emotions are loud. They're immediate. Fear, excitement, envy. These things scream at you. A millionaire builds a decision-making framework first, then uses it like a filter. When the market crashes, they don't panic sell. When they see someone else's success, they don't chase it. They go back to the framework. Does this align with my 10-year plan? Does this fit my risk tolerance? If the answer is no, the emotion doesn't matter. Rule 9 is where most people fail. Millionaires understand that spending money on education compounds. Not college degrees necessarily, but learning. They'll spend $500 on a course without blinking. They'll hire a coach. They'll buy books. They'll attend conferences because they know that knowledge has a multiplier effect. You learn a skill that saves you 5 hours a week. That's 260 hours a year. Over a decade, that's thousands of hours you got back. That's worth way more than $500. Rule 10 might be the most important one, psychologically. Millionaires celebrate their wins, but they don't let wins change their behavior. You hit a big payday. You made a great investment. Your business had a record month. And then what? Most people immediately upgrade their lifestyle. They spend the windfall. A millionaire acknowledges the win, feels good about it for a moment, then reinvests it. They keep their lifestyle relatively flat. This is called the lifestyle creep prevention rule. The richer you get, the easier it is to let your spending grow with your income. That's how you stay broke at high income levels. These 5 rules are interconnected. You're learning to think like a builder instead of a consumer. You're creating decision-making systems instead of relying on impulse. You're treating your mind and your time as your most valuable assets. And you're doing it with discipline and intentionality. The last 5 rules are going to show you how to actually implement all of this in the real world. So here's rule number 9, millionaires. Automate everything they can. They set up automatic transfers to savings before they ever see the money. They automate bill payments so nothing goes missed. They automate their investments so they're building wealth even when they're sleeping. This isn't laziness. This is removing friction. Every decision you have to make manually is a decision you might get wrong. Every transaction you have to remember is a transaction you might forget. The wealthy build systems that work without them. Rule number 10 is that they separate their identity from their purchases. This one's psychological, but it matters enormously. A millionaire doesn't buy a car to prove they're successful. They buy a car that makes sense for their life. They don't wear expensive clothes to signal status. They wear what works. This sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. Most people spend money trying to become the person they want to be. Millionaires spend money because they already know who they are. The purchase is practical, not performative. Rule number 11. They negotiate everything. And I mean everything. Your salary, your rent, your insurance premiums, the price of services. Most people accept the first number they hear because they feel awkward pushing back. Millionaires understand that every dollar they negotiate is a dollar that compounds over time. A $2,000 salary increase becomes hundreds of thousands of dollars across your career. A lower insurance rate saves thousands over a decade. They don't see negotiation as rude. They see it as part of doing business. Rule number 12 is that they invest in their own education relentlessly. Not college necessarily, education, books, courses, mentorship, conferences. They treat learning as a line item in their budget the same way they treat rent. Why? Because they know that the return on education is the highest return available. A $500 course that teaches you a skill that increases your income by $5,000 a year is a no-brainer. The wealthy are perpetual students. Rule number 13. They build networks intentionally. They know that opportunities don't come from nowhere. They come from people. So they invest time in relationships. They show up to events. They maintain connections. They introduce people to each other. They help without keeping score. This isn't transactional. It's relational. But it's also strategic. The people in your network become your opportunities, your advisors, your partners. Millionaires understand this so deeply that they prioritize it. And rule number 14, they track their net worth obsessively, not just their income, their net worth, assets minus liabilities. This number tells you the real story. You can make $100,000 a year and have a negative net worth if you're spending more than you earn. You can make $50,000 and build substantial wealth if you're disciplined. Millionaires check this number regularly, monthly, quarterly. They watch it grow, and watching it grow becomes its own motivation. It's concrete, it's measurable, it's real. These rules aren't secrets. They're habits, they're systems. They're choices made consistently over time. And here's what separates people who talk about building wealth from people who actually build it. The millionaires we've talked about today didn't stumble into their money. They didn't get lucky once and coast. They got intentional. They built systems. They made the same decision over and over until it stopped feeling like a decision and just became who they are. Rule number 11 is this: they automate everything they can. They don't rely on willpower. They set up automatic transfers to savings before they even see the money. They automate bill payments so nothing slips through. They automate investing so compounding starts working for them immediately. The decision gets made once. Then the system runs. Rule number 12. They know the difference between being busy and being productive. Millionaires don't confuse activity with results. They're ruthless about their time because they understand that time is the one resource you can't get back. They say no to most things so they can say yes to the few things that actually move the needle. Rule number 13. They read, not for entertainment, for education. They study their industry. They study psychology. They study how money works. They learn from other people's mistakes so they don't have to make those mistakes themselves. A millionaire's bookshelf is basically a map of how they think. Rule number 14. They build networks intentionally. They know that opportunities don't appear randomly. They come through people. So millionaires invest in relationships. They show up. They add value. They remember that the person sitting across from them today might be the person who changes their trajectory tomorrow. And rule number 15. They think in decades, not days. They're not checking their portfolio every hour. They're not panicking when the market dips. They have a plan. They trust the plan. They stay the course. This is what separates wealth builders from wealth chasers. Wealth chasers want it now. Wealth builders want it built right. Here's the real truth underneath all of this. You don't need to be smarter than anyone else. You don't need to come from money. You don't need to get lucky. You need to be willing to do the things that are boring and unglamorous and consistent. You need to track your money. You need to spend less than you make. You need to invest the difference. You need to let time and compounding do the work. You need to automate it so you don't have to think about it. You need to protect it so you don't lose it. That's it. That's the game. It's not complicated. It's just not easy because it requires you to do the same thing over and over when you'd rather do something else. But that's exactly why so few people do it. And that's exactly why the people who do it end up with everything. Start with one rule. Just one. Pick the one that resonates with you most and implement it this week. Then add another. Build your system piece by piece, because millionaires aren't born, they're built, one rule at a time.